We think we're the first generation to live in a world of curated reality. We talk about FaceTune, filters and deepfakes like they're new inventions that are destroying our perception of truth. But 500 years ago, one man executed the most successful, most violent and most expensive rebrand in human history. Look at this man, the Holbein portrait, the stance, the sheer terrifying mass of him. This is the Henry VIII we all know from the textbooks, the unstoppable tyrant, the king who took what he wanted, broke the church and executed anyone who looked at him wrong. But here is the 2026 reality check. That man in the painting? He didn't exist. He was a 16th century avatar, a carefully constructed lie designed to mask a terrifying truth. By the time this image was being circulated across Europe, Henry VIII was a physical wreck. He was a monarch whose country was bankrupt, whose court was a shark tank of paranoia, and whose authority was a fragile mask, hiding a body that was literally rotting from the inside out. Today, we're tearing down the velvet curtains. We're going beyond the Six Wives gossip to look at the mechanical construction of a lie. We're exploring how Henry used the first modern propaganda machine to gaslight an entire nation, and why he was so pathologically insecure that he had to rewrite the history of God himself just to feel secure on his throne. This isn't the history you were taught in school. This is how Henry VIII lied to England. To understand the lie, you have to understand the insecurity. Henry wasn't born with the ancient right he claimed. The Tudors were new money. His father, Henry VII, won the crown in a muddy ditch at Bosworth Field. They were essentially usurpers who got lucky, and the ancient dynasties of Europe, the Habsburgs and the Valois, knew it. When Henry VIII took the throne in 1509, he was young, handsome, and athletic. He was the rose without a thorn. But he wasn't just trying to be a king, he was trying to outflex the great powers of Europe. To them, England was a second-rate power on a damp, irrelevant island. He had a massive imposter syndrome that he tried to drown in gold. This is where lie number one begins, the lie of infinite wealth. Henry inherited a massive fortune from his father, the equivalent of billions in today's money. He spent it all in record time. Why? Because he needed to buy authority. He needed to look like a king because he didn't feel like one. Let's look at the Field of the Cloth of Gold in 1520. This wasn't a diplomatic summit. It was a 16th century flex. Henry spent a year's national revenue on a 2-week party. He built temporary palaces covered in gold leaf, set up fountains that literally flowed with red wine, and brought 5,000 people across the channel just to show off. He wanted the world to believe England was a superpower. But behind the scenes, he was losing wrestling matches to the French king and going home with empty pockets. He traded his country's solvency for a few weeks of clout. This insecurity defines his entire reign. He wasn't ruling from a position of strength. He was ruling from a desperate, pathological need to be seen as the greatest man in Christendom. And when the money ran out, the lies had to get much, much bigger. He started debasing the coinage by literally mixing cheap copper into silver coins, while still telling the people England was the richest nation on earth. By the 1530s, the rose without a thorn was facing a PR disaster that threatened to end his dynasty. The Great Matter. He wanted a divorce from Catherine of Aragon. The Pope said no, and the country was on the brink of civil war. The myth says Henry just snapped his fingers and broke with Rome because he was a strong leader. The reality? He was terrified of a revolution. To pull this off, he didn't just use soldiers, he used information. He hired Thomas Cromwell, a man who understood the power of the narrative better than anyone in history. Together, they launched the first modern information war. They didn't just change the law, they changed the user interface of the church. This was lie number 2, the divine rebrand. Henry commissioned the Great Bible. Look at the title page. Who is at the top? It's not God, it's Henry. He is sitting on a throne, handing the word of life down to his bishops. He wasn't just a king anymore, he was a prophet. He repositioned himself as a biblical patriarch. If you disagreed with his divorce, you weren't just a political rival, you were a heretic. You were an enemy of God himself. But the lie went deeper than just books. He launched the dissolution of the monasteries. He closed 800 institutions that had been the backbone of English society for centuries. He didn't just take the gold and the land, he pulled the buildings down stone by stone. He burned the libraries. He melted the shrines of saints that had been there for 1,000 years. Why? Because if the physical evidence of the old way of life was gone, people would eventually forget it. It was the ultimate content moderation. He deleted the old user data of England and replaced it with a version where he was the only authority that ever mattered. He rebranded a massive land grab and a religious trauma as a return to the true faith. He created a network of spies and informants that would make a modern surveillance state blush. If you spoke a lewd word against the king in a pub, you could find yourself on the rack by morning. He didn't rule by consent. He ruled by controlling what was allowable to say. It was a hostile takeover masked by a PR campaign, and it worked because he silenced anyone who knew the truth of what England had actually lost. Now we get to the most desperate lie of all, the physical presence. In the 16th century, the king's body was the state. If the king was strong, the country was safe. If the king was decaying, the country was up for grabs. And by the 1540s, the rose without a thorn was rotting literally. In 1536, a jousting accident left Henry with a permanent, ulcerated wound on his leg. It never healed. Modern doctors think it was chronic osteomyelitis, a bone infection that causes the tissue to die and seep. It had to be drained daily. It stank of decay. You could reportedly smell the king 2 rooms away before he even entered. He was in constant, agonizing, blinding pain. This is where the legend of the Tyrant comes from, a man driven mad by chronic agony and possible brain damage from his falls. But he couldn't let England, or his enemies in France and Spain, see that. And he called in the big guns. Hans Holbein the Younger. Holbein was the king's personal FaceTune. Look at the famous 1537 portrait again. Does that look like a man who can't walk? No. Holbein used every trick in the book. He used a low-angle perspective to make Henry look like a colossus. He exaggerated the width of the shoulders using layers of fur and silk to hide a bloated torso. He gave him a power stance that hid the fact that he was actually being moved around his palaces in a primitive wheelchair. A tram. This was lie number 3, the lie of the immortal body. Look at the evidence. We have Henry's actual armour from the Tower of London. His waist expanded from 32 inches to 54 inches. He was a massive bloated cage of steel who had to be hoisted onto his horse with a crane. Yet, but his coins and his portraits still showed a warrior in his prime. He was a man who couldn't walk up a flight of stairs without a mechanical stairlift. Yet he was being portrayed as a god-king ready to lead an invasion. He spent his final years surrounded by clocks. He was obsessed with time because he knew his own was running out. He even made it a crime of high treason to imagine the king's death. Think about that. He tried to legislate his own immortality because the lie was all he had left. He was a man dying in a room full of gold, terrified that the world would find out he was just a man. The final part of the lie wasn't just about his body, it was about his legacy. As he lay dying, Henry was still editing. He was purging his court of anyone who might tell a different story once he was gone. And he executed the Earl of Surrey, one of the greatest poets of the age, simply because Surrey had a better claim to the ancient royal bloodline than Henry did. Henry was obsessed with his son Edward succeeding him. He wanted a pure Tudor future. He wrote a massive, complex will that tried to control England from beyond the grave. He wanted the world to remember him not as the man who bankrupted the country, but as the great reformer. And he succeeded. For 500 years, we've bought the larger-than-life version of Henry VIII. We've turned his cruelty into strength and his madness into personality. We've allowed his propaganda machine, his portraits, his Bibles, his grand palaces to dictate how we see him. We've fallen for the 16th century deepfake. The legacy of the PR king. Henry VIII didn't rule England with just an axe, and he ruled it with a paintbrush and a printing press. He understood something that many leaders today are only just realizing. Power isn't just about what you can do. It's about what people believe you can do. He lied about his money, he lied about his religion, and he lied about his own body. He spent his entire life editing his own reality, and he was so good at it that he convinced the next 5 centuries of history that his version was the truth. When we look back at him as a tyrant, we are actually falling for his propaganda. He wanted us to see him as a monster because a monster is someone you fear. A monster is someone you don't challenge. But when you strip away the gold leaf and the Holbein filters, you don't find a titan. You find a man who was desperately, pathetically human, a man who was so scared of being small and so scared of being forgotten that he built a prison of lies and invited the whole world to live in it. Was Henry a strategic genius, or just a man out of his depth? Let me know in the comments. I'm reading every take. If you want to see how his daughter Elizabeth took this image control strategy and turned it into a 45-year reign of absolute genius, you need to watch the next video in our Early Modern Monarchs Fragile Power series. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this deep dive, and subscribe to help us grow this community in 2026. This is the history they didn't want you to see. I've been your host, and I'll see you in the next one.